Good evening. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. The commissioners who are present for this evening's meeting are in City Hall. We also have staff from the city's attorney and the city clerk's office, as well as the city's planning department. If you're joining us on Zoom this evening, we can see that you are here. You may observe the meeting, however, your ability to be seen on screen and talk will be muted. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, you will be unmuted and then be able to comment. Please note that we cannot take questions until the public testimony portion of the meeting. If you have a process question during the meeting, please email cityclerk@meridiancity.org and they will reply as quickly as possible. If you simply want to watch the meeting, we encourage you to watch the streaming on the city's YouTube channel. You can access it at meridiancity.org/live. With that, we will begin with roll call. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Garrett, Commissioner Seal,
Here.
Commissioner Sandoval,
Present.
Chairperson Lorcher.
Here. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Please note, item 2, Jackson Food Stores, will be open for the sole purpose of continuance. So if there's anybody here to testify on this application, we will not be taking public testimony this evening. Could I get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved and second to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which will include to approve the meetings of the December 5th Planning and Zoning meeting. Could I get a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and second to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I would briefly like to explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and begin with a staff report. Staff will report their findings on how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and our unified development code. After staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward and present their case and respond to staff comments. They will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant is finished, we will open the floor to public testimony. Each person will be called only once during the public testimony. The clerk will call the names individually of those who have signed up on our website in advance to testify. You may come to the microphones in chambers or you will be unmuted on Zoom. Please state your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you have previously sent pictures or a presentation for the meeting, it will be displayed on screen and our clerk will help you run the presentation. If you have established you are speaking on the behalf of a larger group like an HOA, where others from that group will allow you to speak on their behalf, you will have up to 10 minutes. After all those who've signed up in advance have spoken, we will invite any others who wish to testify. I'm a little gun shy here. If you wish to speak on a topic, you may come forward in chambers, or if on Zoom, press the raise hand button on the Zoom app. Or if you're listening on a phone, please press *9 and wait for your name to be called. If you're listening on multiple devices, such as a computer and a phone, please be sure to mute those devices so we do not experience feedback and we can hear you clearly. When you are finished, if the commission does not have any questions for you, you will return to your seat in chambers or be muted on Zoom and no longer have the ability to speak. And please remember, we will not call on you a second time. After all the testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to respond. When the applicant has finished responding to questions and concerns, we will close the public hearing and the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss and hopefully make final decisions or recommendations to City Council as needed. So with that in mind, I would like to open the public hearing for item 2024-0054 for Jackson Food Service for a request for annexation, preliminary plan, and a conditional use permit, but they have asked for a continuance. Madam Clerk, what date are we looking for a continuance?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think they're looking at January 16th.
So may I get a motion to continue the application for January 16th, 2025?
So moved. sorry. Didn't have my microphone on.
All right, let's do the second again. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and second to continue application 2024-0054 to January 16th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is Hawkins Company's request for a conditional use permit for a drive-through and a modified development agreement at 4300 East Fairview. We will begin with the staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Linda Ritter with the Planning Department. So tonight we are here for a request for a conditional use permit and a development agreement modification for a 1,843 square foot quick lube oil change facility and drive-through coffee shop that is within 300 feet of another drive-through facility and an existing residence. The development agreement modification is to establish new hours of operation for the coffee shop to begin at 5 a.m. So, oops. So this application, we are looking at, it is viewed as a restaurant. It requires one parking space for every 250 square feet of gross floor. So right now they are required to have 7 parking spaces. With this layout, the applicant is proposing 17 parking spaces, which exceeds the number of parking spaces required for this. In reviewing the site plan, staff has talked with the applicant, and we feel that this layout is, we don't feel that it's sufficient, and we feel that moving the employee parking from the north side of the property to the south side of the property would provide for better flow for the drive-through for the coffee shop and the lube shop, and there would not be the interference for any queuing in there. And so we are asking the applicant to work with staff to come up with a better layout 15 days prior to the city council hearing, as you are the recommending body and the final decision will be made by city council. The layout, the building itself works. We're just trying to do a better layout for the drive-through so that there is no interference with the queuing. There will be, they're required to do a 25-foot landscape buffer because they are adjacent to residential property here. The applicant did state that they did meet with this property owner who had no issues with the proposal going in at this location. But the applicant is asking for a buffer reduction to include a council waiver or exception to add the trash enclosure within this 25-foot buffer. We'd like for the applicant to work with the existing property owner to the west because their trash enclosure already is within the landscape buffer. And we would like them to try to extend that trash enclosure so that we're minimizing the impact to the landscape buffer. The applicant will be working with Republic Services to see if this is a good location so that they can get in and out of there with the extension of the trash enclosure. So we will have all of that worked out before we get to city council. Otherwise, they meet their landscape requirement for this application. So this is a picture of the existing trash enclosure. And as you can see here on this picture, it does intrude into the existing landscape buffer. We would just like to have that extended so that both of the businesses can utilize that area for their trash enclosure. So they did provide building elevations. These are conceptual. They will have to go through design review and certificate of zoning compliance before the building, before they apply for their building permit. So for their, again, their development agreement modification is only for the hours of operation for the coffee shop. Currently, the DA states that business can only operate between 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. They are in the CG, which allows for business to operate between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. But the DA is what regulates what happens on this site, so they just want to change it. The applicant is asking for the closing hour to be 7 p.m. since it is there. They would like to make that change. Again, this is the location of where the proposal is. These are the residential units behind here. This is the property owner. Their house is right here. They did talk to that property owner. The city did receive about 5 to 6 comments on this application, asking the city to oppose this development. They don't like an oil change and fast food in that location due to the proximity of the residential neighborhood. They said that this proposal will be too noisy for the neighborhood as it is scheduled to open at 5 a.m. and last into the evening. And the other noisy, hectic operations starting at 5 a.m., lasting into the evening, auto repair machinery and drive-through speakers, air pollution, high traffic, idling vehicles, two businesses with drive-through operations can cause potential traffic problems because they share a common parking lot and ingress egress and the reduction of residential property values. Another one was in agreement with one of the comments. And the last one to post the application would like less going on in the area where she lives. Again, there are several ways for this, for people to get in. Access will come in off of Fairview to access this property. There are 2 existing drive aisles already on the, when the bank went in, they added the drive aisle for this portion on the south side. They will be adding a drive aisle on the north side of the property. And people, they can't go across here. So most people will likely come out this way or either come out front and access Fairview, or they will go up and take this road, hit the roundabout, and come out on Record. So there are several ways for people to get out of this development. So staff is recommending approval of this development with our conditions. And at this time, I will stand for any questions you may have.
Would the applicant like to come forward? Hi,
Hello, Madam Chair. Nice to see you.
see you.
I have a presentation if you don't have any questions for staff.
Not yet, but let's hear your presentation. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Excellent, thank you. I'm gonna wait for Linda to pull it up. My name is Ethan Mansfield, Hawkins Companies, 855 West Broad Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. I don't have much to add above Linda's presentation. I think she did a great job reviewing the project. I think it's pretty straightforward. We agree with the conditions in the staff report. I would like to just clarify the hours very quickly. The hours of the coffee user will be 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. The hours of the oil change user will be 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And this is consistent with the other, for the coffee user, they have several other locations in Meridian. This is consistent with those other locations. This will be the first of this oil changer user in Meridian, but this is standard operating hours for all of their other locations across the United States.
Okay.
And then I would like to just say that we do have representatives from Oil Changers online tonight. If you'd like to ask questions about operations, environmental safety, the machinery that they use, which is common, like household drills, like electric drills, like you might use in your garage. And then also to clarify access, we would be taking access primarily from Fairview. The site plan is set up to kind of facilitate the access on and off of Fairview, not to be using Venture as much, although that is absolutely an option. I just wanted to clarify that that's kind of the intention, was to utilize the Fairview, just so that there wasn't as much traffic on Venture or any of the, kind of lesser or like lower traffic roadways. And I think that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
So before you walk away, commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask on the 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. for the coffee shop, is that absolutely necessary? Because this, I mean, even though it's quite a ways away from the houses that are there, it is right up against a residential, which is not common for the rest of the locations.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Commissioner Seal. We did take a look at the other locations of Human Being within Meridian. These are them. Two of them are in the CG zone. One of them is an Old Town zone. The Old Town zone is actually much closer to a residential neighbor than we are. We're about 277 feet from, the building is 277 feet, not the property boundary, but the building itself, from the nearest residential structure. And this one is, if I remember correctly, about 100, 150. So all of these are open at 5 a.m. and they close at 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then on Saturday and Sunday, they open at 6 a.m. So that is consistent with the other operations of every Human Being in the Treasure Valley. So that's why we're asking for it here. We feel that any potential impact can be mitigated by, as far as light, by the landscape buffer, and as far as noise, there is a noise ordinance and there are noise requirements that speakers can't be heard off property. So that's taken care of in other areas of the code. And obviously we're committed to meeting that code. So you could stand at the back fence and not hear the speaker.
Do you agree with the request to move the parking stalls to the north side of the property? South side they're on the south side now, right? Oh, they're on the north. So are you amiable to move the parking to the south side of the property?
It is a little bit confusing because the site plan was turned sideways. And that's just the way it was produced that way. So we have been working with staff on a solution to remove them from the north side. We have a couple different solutions that it sounds like we're working through with staff, and they've been really great to work with on this. Our current iteration does not include them on the south side, but includes additional on the east side to meet parking requirements. But we have been working through that and kind of sharing our needs and the city's needs. And I think we've been making great progress. So we're committed to continuing to work on that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions before public testimony?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Sandoval?
so this might be a question for staff. So the CUP for a drive-through being within 300 feet, is that for the existing drive-through that's on the site plan to the left, that bank, or is it because there's two drive-throughs in this plan?
Commissioner Sandoval, so the oil place is not a drive-through, so that's not considered a drive-through.
Okay.
The
got
coffee
it.
shop is a drive-through, but it is for the bank that is on the west side and for the residence that is adjacent to this.
Perfect, thank you.
All right,
And also, this particular property, the development agreement requires a CUP for any use on this property.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up for testimony?
Madam Chair, we had a Jack sign up, but it looks like they might have crossed their name out. That's the only name on this list.
Good? Okay. Is there anybody in chambers that would like to testify? See you nudging. No, you're good? Okay. And anybody online? Did I already ask that question?
Madam Chair, no one has signed up online and no one has their hand raised.
All right, then I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, wait, sorry, stop. Did you have anything else to add? You're good. All right, I will take that motion and the second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, what do we think about human being and the oil changer? Is that the name of the?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal?
I'd always like to see things come through a little bit more complete. I agree with staff's recommendation to move the parking, so if they can work through that before it gets to city council, I don't see an issue with it, so. I've got to say, after In-N-Out, I'm a little gun shy on drive-throughs in this area, so I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that we're going to have the volume there. So as we have seen with and continue to see at the In-N-Out, very close to this, but I think it's far enough away from that the traffic patterns in here are probably going to be pretty close to what they're forecasting on it. So I don't have any big issues with it. So I mean, it's another expansion of kind of that small grouping of houses that's back there. So I mean, I'm kind of sad to see some of that disappearing and getting encroached on, but all of this is an accepted use for this plot right here. So I don't necessarily have any issues with it.
Yes, and we're the recommending body to city council because of the development agreement modification. Commissioner Garrett or Sandoval, do you have any comments?
No, I don't.
Yeah, Madam Chair. So as far as it being, I mean, the only issue I would see is looking at it from the position of there's another drive-through adjacent to it, and it's a bank, and this is a coffee shop, so I don't really think that there's any issues. Nothing that I have with it, certainly.
I guess the only thing that I would say in regard to the trash enclosure, the trash enclosure right now is at the back of the property, which is abuts up to the residential. And I don't know if you've ever heard of those big cans, blasting back and forth when they're doing their shake. It would be nice to see that actually moved away from the residential a little bit more. But if they're working with staff to find the best spot, because there is already one existing there. So it's a detail that they can work out. All right.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Seal?
After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the city council of file number H 2024-0049 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of December 19th, 2024, with no modifications.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve file number H 2024-0049. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, sorry. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next application we have is from Brighton Corporation, requests a rezone and annexation and a modified development agreement for Apex Zenith near South Meridian and East Lake Hazel Roads. And we will start with the staff report.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the commission. Next item on the agenda is the annexation, rezone, and development agreement modification for Apex Zenith. The applicant is requesting to rezone 71.7 acres from R4 to CG, annex 77.71 acres with the CG and R15 zoning districts and a development agreement modification to develop the subject property with a mixed-use development consisting of approximately 446,000 square feet of commercial, 100,000 square feet of office/employment, and residential uses. The site consists of 149.41 acres of land, generally located at the southwest corner of Meridian Road and East Lake Hazel Road. As shown on the screen, the current zoning is R4 and RUT in Ada County, and the flume designation is mixed-use regional on the western portion and medium to high-density residential on the eastern portion. This is the annexation exhibit for the CG portion. This is showing the float for CG across the Lake Hazel frontage, and the R15 is on the right side. And this is the rezone exhibit for that western portion of the site from R4 to CG. The two parcels fronting South Meridian Road were annexed in 2015 with the South Meridian annexation. These properties were given the placeholder zoning of R4 until future development. Due to these properties being in the mixed-use regional, the request to rezone to CG is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The applicant has submitted a high-level concept plan for the entire development. Phase 1 focuses on commercial, retail, and medical office/employment uses, while Phase 2 includes commercial and residential components. The concept plan proposes the float of the mixed-use regional designation into the medium-high density area along the East Lake Hazel frontage, covering approximately 19 acres. However, the concept plan lacks specific detail and does not demonstrate compliance with essential mixed-use development elements. Staff has expressed concerns with this approach as it may result in critical mixed-use components being overlooked. To address these concerns, staff has outlined a path forward by incorporating provisions in the development agreement requiring comp plan elements during Phase 2. While staff is amenable to deferring key mixed-use elements, a comprehensive master concept plan for the entire development is essential. This plan ensures the alignment with the comprehensive plan and supports the justification of the float of the mixed-use regional along the East Lake Hazel frontage. The applicant has acknowledged the importance of these elements, but intends to provide the details for these elements during Phase 2 with Phase 2 of the future DA amendment. The Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council shall determine if deferring these elements is appropriate at this time. Key elements requiring consideration include plazas connecting commercial and residential uses, active and shared open spaces, a mix of at least 3 distinct land uses, 8-foot parkways with on-street parking and bulb outs, functional integration of uses, purposeful open space design, and design integration. The applicant is requesting the approval to obtain 3 building permits during Phase 1, which includes floating the CG portion along East Lake Hazel Road for employment uses. Additionally, they plan to reconfigure the property through a future property boundary adjustment. This adjustment would allow the construction on the identified parcels before the remaining property is subdivided as part of Phase 2. For mixed-use developments, at least 40% of building frontage must be occupied by building facades per the UDC. The current concept plan shows no building frontage along Meridian Road. To satisfy the 40% requirement for Phase 1, the applicant should relocate the building to the Meridian Road frontage. Staff recommends sliding the building to the west and positioning it along this road. However, after discussing with the applicant, they would like to defer the 40% building frontage to Phase 2 with the remainder of the entitlements. Qualified open space and amenities will be determined with future development agreement modification for Phase 2. The landscape plan will be evaluated with the submittal of the certificate of zoning compliance. However, staff is recommending the landscape buffer improvements be included within Phase 1 of the development. While the applicant is not creating a formal subdivision at this time, staff believes installing all landscape buffers fronting Meridian Road, East Lake Hazel Road, Prevail Avenue, and Aristocrat Drive will be important for the compliance with the comprehensive plan and UDC. Access is proposed from 5 different access points across the development. 3 access points are off Meridian Road and 2 of them are off of East Lake Hazel Road. The 3 access points off Meridian Road include the half-mile collector, a quarter-mile street, and an 1/8-mile street or a private drive aisle. Staff is supportive of the half-mile access, but is not in support of the 2 additional right-in, right-out access as they do not meet UDC standards. However, ITD has approved all 3 accesses with the quarter mile being a full signalized access and the other two being restricted to right in, right out. With ITD's approval, the city council may grant access waivers for the other two access points. Additionally, the applicant has been coordinating with ITD on a STARS agreement to address transportation improvements along State Highway 69 and accesses along its frontage. Staff is supportive of this approach and is recommending the applicant enter into a STARS agreement with ITD prior to the commencing with the development of Phase 2. The applicant has also entered into a completed cooperative development agreement with ACHD to fully build Lake Hazel to 5 lanes between Meridian Road and Apex. With the construction in 2024, both the quarter mile collector prevail and the eighth mile right in, right out driveway to East Lake Hazel Road were designed, approved, and constructed. The applicant is seeking council waiver for the additional access point to East Lake Hazel Road. Staff does not support the 8th mile right in, right out to Lake Hazel Road in accord with UDC. However, this may seek council waiver. On the screen are the DA provisions that staff is recommending with this. There's quite a few. There's 2 different slides, so let me know if you want to take a look at them again. Staff is recommending approval and has received written testimony from the applicant, Amanda McNutt, proposing changes to 2 of the DA provisions shown right here. And I'll stand for questions at this time.
So what 2 agreement provisions are they opposed to? Is it on here?
Yeah, so the existing agreement, so that's the existing, so that's the one that we propose as staff, and their proposed is their change, how they would like it to change as far as with that. So the 2 existing ones are as staff proposed, and the 2 ones that say proposed are how the applicant would like those to change. Essentially, they are wanting to defer some of the landscape buffer installations to different points throughout the phases. So some would be installed with Phase 1, and part of others would be installed with Phase 1, and then some would be deferred until there was actually a future final plat. And then the second one is that they would like the bulb outs to be removed from the DA.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Commissioners, good evening. My name is John Wardle. My address is 2929 West Navigator Drive, Meridian, Idaho 83642. I'm going to just share my screen here. Sure you can see that.
There it is.
Okay, perfect. One thing here. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and talk about this current application before you. Just zooming in very closely, and we'll zoom back out and then we'll come back into it. We're talking about about 150 acres, just a little bit less than 150 acres on the corner of Meridian Road, State Highway 69 and Lake Hazel. Half of this property was brought into the city back in 2016 through a development agreement, and I'll get into that in just a second. As you know, and as the other projects that we have brought before you, this is a part of our Pinnacle community. It sometimes comes up as Apex, but it is Pinnacle. And Zenith is what's in the red box here. But previously, before the city, we received approvals for Northwest, Southeast, Vertex, Far, West, Phenomenal. And we actually have another application in to the city called Cadence. And so we've been bringing a number of different components, not just a standalone of this or standalone of that, but we've been looking at many different land uses and services needed in the area. And because of the location of Zenith on the corner of Meridian Road and Lake Hazel, this really starts to bring some of those regional uses which are desired by the city and by the residents as well. Just want to highlight a couple things that have been done already. We entered into a number of cooperative development agreements with ACHD, and in one of those, actually, the city of Meridian was involved in it as well. The first one we did was Lake Hazel Locust Grove Roundabout, and then we did Lake Hazel from Locust Grove to Recreation. And that was, the city was involved in that one as well, as it allowed them to start phase 2 of Discovery Park. The third one was a 3/4 of a mile from, of Lake Hazel from Locust Grove over to Meridian Road. That roadway was just finished. It was just opened. And so we have a 5-lane roadway now going from Meridian Road almost all the way to Eagle Road. ACHD currently has Eagle Road shut down, and they're building that out as a 5-lane. There'll be an intersection, a lighted intersection at Lake Hazel, and they're building 5 lanes up to Amity Road, which will be complete next fall. In addition to those roadway improvements, we brought Gem Prep into the community. Meridian Library District just opened in October, and we have the SOMI Amphitheater, which will open in summer of '25. At the bottom of the screen, that shows you the full mile of the build out. Google Earth just updated their mapping or the aerial, and so we're able to capture that. But that shows you what has been built as part of a couple of different cooperative development agreements. The city's comprehensive plan currently designates the area as both mixed-use regional, which is kind of shown in brown, and then medium to high density, which is the yellow with some dots on it. We're not proposing any changes to the future land use map, but trying to create a plan that fits within the current context of the city's comprehensive plan. Back in 2016, the city did a large annexation in this part of the community. Part of that was to start the extension of sewer. So in 2016, there were several thousand acres that were annexed and zoned. If you see, as there are R4s on here, those properties were generally brought in as kind of a holding zone with the idea that they would transition to a more comp plan specific designation when those projects came forward. Just like we've done on the rest of Pinnacle, that was originally brought in as all R4. And as you can see, there's land uses or new zones that are upon there. So this is a continuation of that prior annexation that happened in 2016, which kind of created a holding zone. So before the commission tonight, there's a couple of items. One is a rezone of the part of the property which is directly adjacent to Meridian Road, which is about 71.7 acres. And then there is an additional 77 acres that needs to be annexed and brought into the city. Then based on your recommendation, the city council will look at those, enter into a new development agreement specific to this 150 acres, and we'll also review the waivers of access to Lake Hazel and Meridian Road. And finally, we will be doing some adjustments on the parcels so that applications can move forward on some of the land uses. This is the concept plan that we provided to staff. What's important here is this is also the basis for the discussions we've had with both ITD and ACHD on transportation. The land uses which are represented here have been built into the TISs, which are in process of being reviewed by both those agencies. We actually have had bi-monthly conversations with ITD specifically because State Highway 69 is their corridor and they're looking at long-range plans there, and we're trying to merge into those plans and see how we can facilitate some improvements on that corridor as they continue to work through their plans. So this represents two different colors. You kind of have the salmon color, which is a CG zone, which takes in all of the area along Meridian Road. And then we also have a little bit of floating across Lake Hazel. That partial up there that says medical office, it's actually bisected by the Rawson lateral. The Rawson actually is slightly elevated, and so there's really not a direct connection with the piece to the north and south, but we just carried the CG across that completely. And then the rest of it is in compliance with the city's comprehensive plan of medium to high density. We're also showing here some roadway improvements, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but we have already made with Lake Hazel improvements. We've made the intersection for Prevail, which is a 1/4 mile east of Meridian Road. And there's an 1/8 mile curb return there as well. And we've made along that entire corridor a number of different curb returns in compliance with ACHD's plans and to try to make those work. We've also worked with ITD. If you see where Aristocrat here is, just south of Aristocrat, on that corner against Meridian Road, that's actually CUNA. It's in their area of impact. We worked with the city of CUNA, with ITD on Aristocrat and its full access as a collector roadway. Couple graphics really quickly here is we're requesting a rezone of the R4 to a CG and a little bit of the area and the annexation to CG and the balance of the area in white to R15. And this kind of shows you how those will work together. So our first step is as you read through the application and you read through the staff reports, kind of a step one, step two, is that we're initiating the process so that we can commence with some regional, I should say, commercial uses as well as medical uses. We have had conversations with different users and they are ready to go. And so we are trying to accommodate them through this first step, which would allow for this rezone process, the annexation process happen. And that was also the request for the building permits with these as well, so that we could commence those and these work could go forward. And those are represented here in red. The area that's represented in yellow, which is the bounds of the property, is what we call the second step. We need to bring back to this commission preliminary plat. We're already delineating where roadways are going to go, but there's some uses within those areas that are not as of yet known. But we can go in from day one, get the roadways built, and then bring back to this commission the second step, which would bring preliminary plat applications and detailed development applications as noted by staff. Just zooming in really quickly here. Here are the completed Lake Hazel Road approvals, the quarter mile, which is Prevail. That intersection is in, and then also the 8th mile just to the west of that. These are in. We've also completed the sidewalks, which are 10-foot sidewalks on each side of the road, and have installed the landscaping in these corridors. So we don't always have that opportunity, but we felt like here was a chance, and ACHG was able to work with us to get those things done sooner than later, and we expedited that as much as possible. So what are we going to do from day one? So as I mentioned, we have some opportunities to move forward with some building permits. In order to get those building permits, we need to have some site improvements done. Along Lake Hazel, where you see the red asterisk, we actually have utilities to that location. Sewer and water everything is there. We built that with the improvements into Lake Hazel. And so we want to commence as quickly as possible. And we're showing here June of 2025. The blue section and the green section, those improvements and infrastructure would occur as quickly as we could so that those building permits could start. Then right after that, we've kind of split the plans apart so that we can get approvals and get sign off on utilities with the blue and the green. And then we would also complete the orange roadways, which would be the balance of Prevail, Spire, and Aristocrat. We're still working with the Highway District and ITD on signalization and timing of those. But ITD has indicated that their long-range plans now do accommodate for signals at the half mile. When we designed the quarter mile, we also designed that with ACHD in tow and all the conduits in place for the future signalization as well. And so our hope is that we would be putting those signals in with our first with these orange roads, so that when any uses were open or prior to the certificate of occupancy, this complete roadway infrastructure here would be done with this project. And that's what we're committing to do up front. They're just the nuance here is it's one project, but we kind of broken up into an A and B, just so we can get these things moving and get them done prior to certificate of occupancy. Commissioner Lorcher had asked, and I'll just kind of get into this really quickly, but here's really the two modifications we're asking for from the staff report. And we do concur with the staff report. We've spent a lot of time with them. We came in early to discuss the project. We've had a number of conversations. Nick and Bill have been very open to listening and talking through situations with us. Part of this is timing of landscaping of the buffers. We're fully committed, and let me just we provided an exhibit of what we want to do from the very beginning. And we're showing the green buffers along Lake Hazel and Meridian Road, and also along Prevail and Spire. So all of that work, and even down to Aristocrat, would be part of our initial work. The part that's in question would be this area in blue. That's going to come back to the city in the future for a preliminary plat, and then ultimately final plats. But there are some details that we still need to work through out on that buffer. We're committed to it. We're not avoiding it. It really needs to be more specific to when that phase of development happens, not at the very beginning before we really have access to any of those buffers or there's any improvements there. So that's the request. That's the modification that we're asking for, is that the condition be amended and that this exhibit, which we provided to staff, be part of the record. And then the other question was regarding on-street parking and bulb outs. If you have driven into Pinnacle, the Northwest in particular, we have a lot of on-street parking and bulb outs. We're not adverse to those. In fact, we believe that they provide a very good opportunity to provide calming and other things like that. But we had to work with ACHD on the location of those and where those would be. So we're just a little concerned about a blanket statement of bulb outs and on-street parking without, specific clarity as to what that would be. Are we committed to moving that direction? Yes, but we're just asking that that condition be stricken at this point as we come back to the commission in the future. So, in summary, we're asking the commission tonight for basically first step approval for the annexation and rezoning process that would allow the CG and R15 to move forward, which would then allow us to submit plans for roadway work and infrastructure. And then we will be back on phase 2 on those areas that we talked about with more detailed planning and address the issues that staff has identified, design, integration, mixed use. We've already started that process. We're showing you a mixed use project already, but there's a little bit more detail that needs to be in place. And we can get there. If you recall, when we did 10 Mile Crossing, initially those design guidelines are not part of that. We brought those in at a later date. And in fact, it ended up being about a 77 or 80-page document, which was then adopted by development agreement. We're committed to doing that here. We are not ready to do that at this point in time, but when we come back for step 2, we'll be coming back with the same set of design guidelines. And I think if you have questions regarding how that's worked, I think staff could explain that process and why that's important. And we believe it's important as well, because as you look at 10 Mile and the way it's built out, there's a cohesiveness. It didn't start out with design guidelines, but we were able to establish a theme and we got there. So that is our goal here as well. So with that, I stand for any questions you might have tonight.
Can you bring up the slide that had the salmon color and where you had the big box stores or medical, where you had the annexation? That one. So all of the land that we are talking about for annexation and rezone are currently under your control, correct?
Yes, there's one property, you can kind of see it there,
Little holdout there?
little holdout. That's the Davises, and the Davises are here tonight, and they can speak to that as well. But we've spent a lot of time talking with them on how we integrate with them. But everything else you see there is under our control.
And you also mentioned that south of Aristocrat is the city of Cuna, correct?
It doesn't, Madam Chair, sorry, I'm a little informal there. This piece right here is the city of Cuna. You can kind of see this line here. To the right of that line is the city of Meridian.
Oh, okay.
So there's just a little piece here. If you kind of come through South Meridian, there's like this jagged tooth kind of diagonal. That's kind of where this happens here. But this piece here goes to Cuna, and then to the right is the city of Meridian.
One more question. What is there now? Is it empty land or is there development?
Madam Chair, are you asking specifically about the property adjacent to Meridian Road?
South of Aristocrat.
So there's two things. Let me see.
So
Right,
in
this is a pretty good exhibit.
yeah, so right now it looks like it's undeveloped, correct?
It's undeveloped. There is a property owner there on, I'm going to say, I'm going to have my number wrong, but let's call it 20 acres. They have an approval for self-storage.
Okay.
South of that is the Lineman College.
Oh, okay.
And then there is a 5-acre property here. That's owned by the Wesleys. And we've communicated with them on Aristocrat and how that's going to be. But so there would be storage here and then the Wesleys property and then our property. So there's a little house here with some outbuildings and things that the Wesleys own, but the rest of it is currently kind of undeveloped.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions for Mr. Wardle?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal?
on the, specifically on the condition, the 4A1L, instead of striking that language altogether, would you be comfortable with something that is a such as verbiage instead of striking it altogether? So there's the expectation, because if you're committed to doing some kind of mitigation like that, something such as, I think is,
Yes,
okay,
that's agreeable.
thank you.
Okay, I think we're good for right now. We'll,
I have excuse me.
sorry.
There was mention of a star agreement that you had worked out.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Garrett, not worked out yet.
Oh,
We've had a number of conversations with ITD about Highway 69. There is an opportunity, but we don't have those details worked out as of yet, but making other improvements in that corridor. And so we're committed to continuing to work towards that. We have looked at different scenarios as what could happen. ITD is at kind of an interesting position as well, as they are looking at their own plans and they have other developments coming along, and there's been commitments made by other developers. We're just trying to identify what could occur in the corridor. So no, we have not. We're working towards that. But based on our conversations with ITD, we feel like there's a very good path to continue those conversations.
Madam Chair, quick
Commissioner Seal?
question. So, without naming a business that's going to go in there, can you say what the businesses that are going in there would be similar to, or the vision that you have for that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Seal, I cannot. I can tell you that we have had conversations with retailers and with medical users, and those would be similar to what have already been built in the city of Meridian.
Okay. And Madam Chair, the reason I've asked that is majority of people that I talk to that are south of the freeway are just like, put in a Target, put in a Walmart in south of the freeway. Always have to drive north to get to it. So it's a very big ask in that area.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Seal, you are correct that there are some needed services, retail services that would include grocery and everyday use things needed south of Overland Road for that matter. And I can just tell you that we're committed to help moving that along. And that's kind of the impetus of why these applications are before you and the improvements that we want to make so that those things can happen sooner than later. So,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Wardle before we open the public testimony? Okay, I think we're good now.
Thank you.
Thanks. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to testify?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a John, no last name, that signed up online. I don't see a John on
I
Zoom.
don't either. Okay.
Next person we have is Jack Davis.
Good evening.
Commissioners,
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Jack Davis. I reside at 7,000 South Meridian Road, the owner of the holdout property that's illustrated on the map.
Okay.
I signed up and not knowing exactly what the buffer requirements were on step 2 of John's proposal, Mr. Wardle's proposal, and we met prior to the hearing. he's addressed my concerns, and that's really all I have to state right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, Cheryl Davis, did you want to testify? Okay, that's okay.
Okay.
No one else has signed up.
Anybody else in chambers? Mr. Wardle, do you have anything else to add?
For the record, John Wardle with Brighton. I just wanted to state that with the Davises, I would not consider them a holdout. We've met with them in their house. We've talked about how we would surround them, opportunities to create buffers and things like that, and that commitment is fully in place. And so he said hold out, and I just wanted to make sure that I feel like there's no adversary between either one of us, but they are good people and we'll continue to work with them. Again, I just wanted to, I just conclude with, again, we ask for your recommendation to the city council for the rezone of the property that's already been annexed, and also the annexation request in these applications as well. And look forward to continuing to add to the Pinnacle community and bring services that are needed south of the freeway.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So I understand staff's concerns with the roads going along Meridian Road, whether they're right in, right out, or however that works, because it does not follow the UDC. And as far as access is concerned, I would think the less you would have on Meridian Road would be better, because that's a pretty fast-moving highway. So having more access on Lake Hazel, but so I understand that part of it. And the bulb outs for parking is something that can be addressed with ACHD. But I think the concern was the timing of it, phase 1 or phase 2. Other than that, it seems like we've been, or Brighton working with this particular area, these square miles has been building up to this point, and it really is the devil's are in the details, I think, for a little bit of it. Overall, it fits in with the area. If it's going to provide services to the south side of the freeway, so that the community doesn't always have to come north, would be in the best interest of the community. I guess I would just have to kind of go through again of the things that are being concerned as far as phasing is concerned. Any other, I'd have to look back, but any other comments about this application?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal?
I think you're on point there. I mean, it's a big piece of land. It's going to bring in hopefully something that kind of the communities there are asking for, as far as kind of bringing more business south of Overland for easier access there. And I mean, being right off Meridian Road, it's to me, that's the place you want to have it. So with the Lake Hazel improvements that are there, and the amount of residents that are developing there too, I think it's, I personally think that it's going to be a good fit for the area. So as far as the modifications that the applicant is asking for, I don't have any issues with 4A1H, which is the buffer, especially since he's already talked to the landowner there to kind of, basically let them know what they're committed to and work with them in order to provide what's going to be necessary there. I don't see them going way out of spec with this.
Right.
I think, you know, the idea is to get this developing in as quickly and as efficiently as they can. So I think the buffer discussion is probably one of just, I hate to see them build something out, just have to rebuild it depending
Right.
on what goes in there. So really don't have any issues with that. I would like to, instead of striking all the language altogether for 4A1L, I would just rather put in the terminology such as the bulb outs and that. So if I make the motion, I'll throw that in there.
I think you might because you got all the language. Commissioner Garrett, do you have any other comments in regard to this proposal?
I do. I happen to live about a mile and a half down from this proposal down Lake Hazel. And I compliment you on your other work to date. Seems to be doing very well, and I'm a user of that new library. So that's great. And I also like the idea of services, having to not drive into as far as I have to do now. So I'm in favor of this development as you've described it. Thank you.
Commissioner Sandoval?
Madam Chair. Yeah, I see the landscape buffer issue from both sides, but I tend to agree with your comments that it doesn't make sense to ask a developer to build out a landscape buffer and then potentially add cost to go rip it out or to do something else to it. That doesn't really make sense. The same with the bulb outs, right? I think we can defer to ACHD and let them work it out. As far as the commercial next to the residential, I think that's a good idea to bring something in the neighborhood. So, and almost more importantly is, as far as with the Davis residents, working with them and having their support, it's really hard to be anything but in favor of this.
Madam Chair, if we could have staff bring up the graphic that has the actual 2 points on there. So I'll try and make a motion here real quick.
Is that what you wanted to see?
Yeah. Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal?
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval of file H 2024-0052 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of December 19th, 2024, with the following modifications. That 4A1H be modified to state install landscape buffers as shown in the exhibit. And to add the words such as to not make on-street parking and the bulb outs mandatory.
Second.
It's been moved and second to recommend to City Council the annexation and modified development agreement for Apex Zenith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We good to go for one more?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The next application is by Rodney Evans and Partners, requests a preliminary plat for the Lennon Point subdivision near Linder and Ustick Roads. And we will start with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The next application before you is a request for a preliminary plat. This site consists of 8.8 acres of land. It's zoned R15 and CC, and it's located at 1515 West Ustick Road at the southeast corner of North Linder Road and West Ustick Road. This property was annexed back in 2022 with a development agreement, and approval was granted at that time for a preliminary plat and a conditional use permit for a multifamily residential development, both of which have since expired. The development agreement requires future development to be generally consistent with the previously approved plans, including the preliminary plat and conceptual building elevations, as well as the site plan. Comprehensive plan future land use map designation for this property is mixed use community. A new preliminary plat is proposed consisting of 41 building lots for the development of 3 single-family residential detached units, 30 single-family residential attached units, and 8 townhome units. 1 multifamily residential building lot for 18 apartment units, and 1 commercial building lot for 2 building pads, and 7 common lots on 8.8 acres of land in the R15 and CC zoning districts. The proposed plat generally complies with the previous plat included in the development agreement as required. 1 phase of development is proposed. Access is proposed by 1 full access via North Linda Road and Arterial Street along the project's west boundary, which may be restricted to a right-in, right-out if warranted by ACHD in the future. And 1 access from West Ustick Road and Arterial Street, which is restricted to right-in, right-out. Access is also proposed via the extension and connection of West Pebblestone Drive at the east boundary of the site and North Zion Park Avenue at the southern boundary of the site. Both existing local streets stub to this property. The public street will provide access to lots on the eastern portion of the site, and a private street loop is proposed for addressing purposes and for access to the lots on the western portion of the site. So I'll just show you real quick here. This is the public street coming in. And then the private street is proposed right around here and loops back to that public street. The development incorporates a MU in the design as required by the UDC for approval of private streets and single-family developments. The director has approved the proposed private streets. The maintenance agreement for the private streets is required to include all lots within the development, all of which are required to pay their proportionate share toward maintenance of the private streets. Ingress-egress easements are required for all lots in the development to use the private streets and the driveways in the commercial and multifamily residential portions of the development, as well as the single-family. 7-foot wide attached sidewalks exist along Linder and Ustick roads. A 25-foot wide street buffer is required along both of these streets. There are 2 major waterways that cross this site, the Creason Lateral and the Kellogg Lateral. The Kellogg Lateral is being rerouted to the southwest corner of the site near the Creason Lateral. A 10-foot wide multi-use pathway is proposed to extend from the southern boundary along the Creason Lateral to the sidewalk along Linder Road in accord with the Pathways Master Plan. A minimum of 15% qualified open space is required to be provided for the single-family residential and the townhome portions of the development. Based on 6.96 acres, a minimum of 1.05 acres is required to be provided. 1.33 acres, or 19.07%, is proposed, consisting of linear open space, open grassy areas exceeding 5,000 square feet in area, 50% of the arterial street buffers along Linder and Ustick roads, and stormwater retention facilities, plaza area, all of which meet and exceed UDC standards. Qualified site amenities are also required to be provided based on the area of the development. A minimum of 2 site amenity points are required to be provided. The applicant is proposing a dog park with a dog wash station for 2 points, 2 dog waste stations, 1 point, a tot lot with commercial grade play equipment, 1 point, a short segment of multi-use pathway, internal pedestrian bicycle circulation system with landscaping and bicycle storage exceeding the minimum standards by several points. Future development is required to comply with the conceptual building elevations and site plan included in the development agreement. Final design of all single-family residential attached and townhome structures, as well as the commercial and multifamily structures, is required to comply with the design standards in the Architectural Standards Manual. A conditional use permit is required for the multifamily development prior to development. Written testimony has been received from the applicant, Ben Semple. He has submitted a letter in agreement with the staff report. Staff is recommending approval with a request for an additional condition to be added, requiring an ingress-egress easement to be depicted on the plat across lots 2 and 3, block 1, the commercial and the multifamily residential lots, granting access to all lots in the subdivision. The applicant is in agreement with this added condition. Staff will stand for any questions.
Would the applicant like to come forward?
Good evening, Madam Chair. Ben Semple with Rodney Evans and Partners, 1450 West Bannock Street. Boise, Idaho 83702. Yeah, I want to thank Sonia and the rest of the staff for helping get through this. It's kind of an interesting situation where we had actually obtained a final plat approval and there was some missing information about the preliminary. We got a final plat approved about 4 months before the preliminary plat expired. So when the preliminary plat expired, everything else fell in line. So we're back here. The submitted, first of all, we are in agreement with the staff report and all conditions of approval. We've already actually made all of the adjustments. I mean, there's a few that we still need to make based on new UDC standards for a couple of the little spots. But we've adjusted a lot of this plat based on the previous when we came back for the final plat. So we feel very good about this project. We will return, like as Sonia stated, we will return for a CUP and design review on the multifamily structure or structures. 9 units in each building. They all have garages. The owner and developer of this project is planning to hold those for his income. So his intent is to make it more of a high-end kind of luxury apartment setup. So, with this area being a transition from this busy intersection into single family to the east and south, we're trying to push single family. All of the homes on the southern half of this are single family. They are townhomes connected, but they're fee simple lots, so they'll allow home ownership. All of them have 2-car garages as well as driveways that are a minimum of 20 feet deep behind the sidewalk. With the amenities we're providing, we did a little bit of a reorientation of the multi-use pathway along the crease and lateral. Worked with the Parks Department and the pathways managers here at the city to make sure we've got a less kind of curving situation going on. It was a little disconnected before. We have 2 plazas, one in the southern portion that you can see down by that multi-use pathway that has seating. It'll have some pedestrian level lighting in it. That's also the access to the dog park. Currently, this is shown at about a 4,000 square foot dog park, and looking at the conditions of approval, will increase that size to 5,000 to meet the UDC standard. And then there's a plaza to the east of the retail building that is closest to the residential. So that'll be publicly accessible as well. That's kind of the main crossing from that center Mu area over to that commercial retail. We did have some really great conversations with ACHD regarding the public street and the extension of those 2 public streets that stuck to this property. Met with the neighbors for the resubmittal of this, and we've already adjusted some stuff again previously. The eastern side initially had some access front door pathways along the east side. So between the existing and the new, we've taken that away. So all of the homes on the east side, they have a backyard against a backyard to the east. And so all pedestrian traffic will stay, to the west of that. We're again really looking forward to getting this project restarted so it can get built out, as well as improving the connectivity here by the connection of, there's currently a multi-use pathway that stops at the southern boundary, really doesn't have any way to get anywhere else. So by connecting this, it'll allow people to move from those residential areas all the way up to that corner to access services. And that crease and lateral will be piped through the site. So that's the relocation of that will include a piping of it, which is why we have this common driveway and kind of larger landscape area at that southeast corner. That's where it's picked up. It's brought west, and then it angles through the site, through that open space area. I think that's kind of all I have. Again, I think Sonia did a great job presenting the project for me. And I'd stand for any questions you may have.
The northwest corner of your parcel, all the way at the top on the left-hand side, do you have control of that? Is that one of your retail buildings, or is that not
Yes.
part of this application?
Madam Chair, yes, so all buildings on this site, this entire corner is held by one developer, my client. So he plans to develop all the residential. He's been having some conversations with some users about the commercial retail spaces. Obviously, we'd come back with a formalized application for design review and CZC once he has a user to build that out.
Gotcha. Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to testify?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have David Anne Marie Childers.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Joy Ferlipa.
Hi.
Madam Chair, my name is Joy Philippa. I reside at 1375 West Santiago Street. I'm part of the Tethero Crossing HOA, across the way from where this actually is. I just have some clarification that I wanted on the U-Stick side of the road because we already have issues with traffic blocking the intersections in and out of our neighborhood. And so I'm wondering, I know that they noted it is going to be, can I touch the mouse? Is it okay if I touch it?
I'm not sure if it'll work, but you can.
I was
don't
gonna
think
say,
it is
on
controls.
the added entrance that they're doing for right turn only, if that's right turn only, what I want to know is if they're going to put in like painted lines to like not block. Because similar to my streets, we have the entrance into West Santiago from U-Stick. It will be blocked during the work hours.
So
So
like the square that says,
Yes.
give the space so that you can't go there?
correct.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's something that would be viable there or for the others that are in the neighborhood that's adjacent to put in a painted block. Because I know during the just work commute hours, it tends to be really chaotic to get out if you have to turn left at all.
Okay, well, you can definitely ask the applicant for that. Were there other concerns?
That is all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, we have Guy Skeek.
Okay,
No one else has signed up.
anyone in Zoom?
Madam Chair, no.
Would the applicant like to come forward and address the concerns?
Madam Chair, again, Ben Semple with Rodney Evans Partners for the record. So part of what we have to do for the right in, right out onto U-Stick, ACHD is requiring us to install candles so that there cannot be a left-hand turn out of that entrance. The one onto Linder, ACHD is allowing us a full access for now because there's an EMT station right across the street. They just wanted to, I guess, restricting any movements from their driveway. They were concerned about putting anything out in the Linder right of way there. They did reserve the right to close that to a right in, right out in the future if it's warranted. But ultimately, I think I understand the question, across that drive aisle was the question, is there's going to be a crosswalk that you don't block or something?
I
think that
think
was mine.
in her subdivision, it's challenging to get in and out. So by having the painted square where people don't queue up all the way up the street, you have to leave that space
Oh.
blank so they can come in and out.
Madam Chair, I think I understand. So the parking lots that access the back of the multifamily buildings, I'm sure we'll put some signage that says, don't block this intersection. And same thing with the rest of these roads. I mean, they'll be signed. There is some on-street parking, but we'll make sure this has to comply with all the fire department access. So,
Her concern was U-Stick Road.
yeah, I mean, I don't, there will be the ability to turn right into the development and turn right out onto U-Stick, but other than what we're putting out in the right of way to prevent cars from trying to turn left, I think that'll help because people understand there will be signage that says right out only.
Any other comments that you'd like to make before we close the public hearing?
I don't think so. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, if you could just talk to Joy before you leave, that would be great and make sure that everybody's good with it.
Yes.
Thanks. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to close the public hearing for 11 Point subdivision. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This was an application that came before us actually several times. And it looks like that their development agreement or something had expired. So they were required to comply with new UDC codes and things like that, which I think they have done a good job with.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Seal.
Yeah, this seems to be a more complete application than what we've seen on it before, so I like some of the modifications that have been made. Only thing I still kind of question is just the 3 lots on the common driveway. Seems to be a little bit out of place, but in trying to maximize the usage there, I understand there's not much you can do about that, so I am glad they moved the dog park out of that area, so.
Yeah, I think they're limited with the lateral
Mhm.
and the topography as well. Commissioner Garrett or Commissioner Sandoval, do you have any other comments? So with that, after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend file number H 2024-0060 to City Council as presented the staff report for hearing date of December 19th, 2024.
Second.
Madam Chair, staff asked for the additional ingress egress as well to be added as a modification.
And to consider the ingress egress on lot 2 and 3, block 1.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve Lemon Point subdivision with the one modification for ingress egress. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I will take one more motion.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal,
move we adjourn.
I need a second.
Second.
It's been moved and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?